Hello, friends. Welcome to English Minds. Dive into the world of timeless English literature. Today, we will discuss on William Wordsworth life and works, top 100 most important collection. So let's begin. What is the birth year of William Wordsworth? Option A 77. William Wordsworth was born on 7 April 77 in Cockermouth, Cumberland, England. Where was Wordsworth born? Option A Cockermouth. Cockermouth, located in the Lake District, it the birthplace of William Wordsworth. Which educational institution did Wordsworth attend? Option D Hawkshead Grammar School. Wordsworth attended Hawkshead Grammar School during his formative years before studying at Cambridge. Who was Wordsworth's sister and close companion? His sister Dorothy Wordsworth. Dorothy Wordsworth's sister was his closest confidant and inspired much of his poetry with her detailed journals. In which year did Wordsworth marry Mary Hutchinson? Option A 1802. Wordsworth married Mary Hutchinson, a childhood friend, on October 1802 with Mary Hutchinson. Wordsworth had a daughter with Annette Vallon. What was her name? Option A Caroline. Caroline was the daughter Wordsworth had with Annette Vallon during his stay in France. Wordsworth was deeply inspired by which natural reign of England? Option A the Lake District. Wordsworth poetry frequently celebrates the natural beauty of the lakes district where he lived most of his life. Which revolutionary event influenced Wordsworth during his youth? Option B the French Revolution. Revolutionary event influenced Wordsworth during his youth. Wordsworth was inspired by the ideal of liberty and equality during the French Revolution, which influenced his early work. Wordsworth became poet laureate in which year? Option A 1843. Wordsworth became the poet laureate of England in 1843, succeeding Robert Southey. Where is Wordsworth buried? Option B. Grasmere Churchyard. Wordsworth is buried in Grasmere Churchyard near his beloved Dove Cottage. Which poem begins with the line, I wandered lonely as a cloud? Option B. Daffodils. Also known as I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, this iconic poem celebrates the beauty of nature. What is the subtitle of Wordsworth's The Prelude? Option A. Growth of a Poet's Mind. The subtitle reflects the autobiographical nature of the prelude, which traces Wordsworth's development as a poet. Wordsworth's lyrical ballad was published in collaboration with which poet? Option A. Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Wordsworth collaborated with Coleridge to publish lyrical ballad, marketing marking the beginning of the Romantic movement. In which year was the first edition of lyrical ballads published? Option A. 1798. Lyrical ballads marked the beginning of which literary movement? Option B. Classicism? No, it's a Romanticism. Option number A. Lyrical ballads is considered the cornerstone of the Romantic movement, emphasizing emotion and nature. Which poem contains the poem line, the child is father of the man? Option B. My heart leaps up. The child is father of the man is from My Heart Leaves Us, expressing Wordsworth's philosophy of life. In which poem does Wordsworth describe Tintin Abbey? Option A. Lines composed a few miles above Tintin Abbey. This poem reflects on nature's enduring power and its impact on the poet's soul. Who is the central figure in Wordsworth Michael? Option A. Shepherd. Michael is a pastoral poem about a shepherd and his sacrifice for his son Luke. Which of the following poem is part of the Lucy poem? Option A. She dwelt among the untrodden wheat. This is one of the Lucy poems exploring themes of love and loss. Which year saw the publication of The Excursion? Option A 1840. The Excursion, a philosophical poem and part of the Recluse project, was published in 1814. The Prelude was published posthumously in which year? Option number A 1850. The Prelude, subtitled Growth of a Poet's Mind, was published after Wordsworth's death in 1850 by his wife Mary Hutchinson. What is the theme of the prelude? Option B personal growth and poetic development. The prelude is an autobiographical poem personal growth and poetic development that explores Wordsworth's growth as a poet and his spiritual developments. Wordsworth's poem The Solitary Reaper describes a girl singing in which country? England? No. Option B Scotland. The poem is set in the Scottish Highlands where Wordsworth encounters a girl singing while working in the fields. Lyrical Ballad contains which of the following famous poems by Wordsworth? 24. Option number B The Thorn. Lyrical Ballads, co-authored with Samuel Taylor Coleridge, contain several of Wordsworth's poems, including The Thorn. The second edition of Lyrical Ballads included which important preface? Preface to the Lyrical Ballads. In the second edition of Lyrical Ballads, Wordsworth included his poem Preface, which outline his poetic principles. What term did Wordsworth use to describe poetry in the preface to Lyrical Ballads? Option A the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. Wordsworth famously defined poetry as the spontaneous overflow of powerful feeling, emphasizing emotion over rationality. The famous poem Tintin Abbey was written during which year? Option B 1800. 1800. Tintin Abbey was written in 1798 but revised in 1800 and became one of Wordsworth's key poems exploring the relationship with nature, which natural feature is frequently mentioned in Wordsworth poetry. Option B, mountains. Wordsworth often references mountains, valleys, and other aspects of nature in his poetry as symbol of transcendence and spirituality. Resolution and independence was features with unique character. Option B, a leech gatherer. Resolution and independence tells the story of a leech gatherer who serves as a symbol of endurance and resilience. Wordsworth's idea of emotion recollected in tranquility was emphasized in which work? Option B, Preface to Lyrical Ballads. Preface to Lyrical Ballads. Wordsworth explains in the preface to Lyrical Ballads the poetry arises from emotion experienced in the past and recollected in a peaceful reflective state. Which poem by Wordsworth which poem by Wordsworth was inspired by his daughter Catherine? Option A, Surprised by Joy. Surprised by Joy is a poignant poem in which Wordsworth expresses his grief over the loss of his young daughter Catherine, who is addressed in Wordsworth's poem To My Sister. Option A, Dorothy Wordsworth. Dorothy Wordsworth, the poet's beloved sister, is the subject of To My Sister, in which Wordsworth celebrates her companionship. The poem of the poem The World is Too Much with Us criticized which aspects of society? Industrialization and materialism. The poem criticized humanity, materialism, and disconnect from nature, which were both hallmarks of the Industrial Revolution. Wordsworth's sonnet, composed upon Westminster Bridge, describes which city? Option A, London. Composed upon Westminster Bridge is a sonnet describing the beauty and tranquility of London in the early morning. The sonnet. In lines written in early spring, what does Wordsworth reflect on? The harmony between man and nature. Wordsworth reflects on the inherent connection between humans and nature and the natural world in lines written in early spring. The intimation of immortality explores which philosophical idea? The loss of childhood innocence. The poem laments the loss of childhood innocence and the fading connection with the spiritual world as one grows older. Which of the following poem is not by Wordsworth? Option A. P.B. Shelley. The Prelude, Tintin Abbey, and Daffodils, written by Wordsworth. The Rime of Ancient Mariner, written by Coleridge. Wordsworth believed that poetry should use what kind of language? Strictly formal? No, common and everyday. Wordsworth advocated for the use of simple everyday language in poetry to make it accessible to a broader audience. Wordsworth Peterbilt is classified as what type of work? Option A, narrative poem. Peterbilt is a narrative poem that tells the story of a man's moral and spiritual development. Wordsworth's literary philosophy is most closely associated with which literary movement? Option A, Romanticism. Wordsworth is one of the leading figures of the Romantic movement, focusing on emotion, nature, and the individual. Wordsworth was influenced by which earlier poet? John Milton. Option A. Wordsworth was deeply influenced by Milton, especially his sense of the sublime and his use of the blank verse. Who succeeded Wordsworth as poet laureate? Option B. Robert Southey. Wordsworth 1843. Wordsworth's influence is most evident in which of the following genres? Lyric poetry. Option B. Wordsworth's works, especially his shorter poems, are predominantly lyrical, focusing on personal emotion and reflection. Which essayist and poet was a contemporary and close friend of Wordsworth? Option A. Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Coleridge was Wordsworth's close friend and collaborator, particularly in their joint work, Lyrical Ballads. Wordsworth advocated for poetry that emphasized which of the following? The beauty of the natural world. The beauty of the natural world. Wordsworth is renowned for his emphasis on the beauty of nature and and its transformative power. Which poem by Wordsworth describes as a wanderer's reflections in a graveyard? Option D. The Old Cumberland Beggar. The Old Cumberland Beggar is about a wandering beggar's reflections on the poor and the human condition. What was the profession of Wordsworth's father? Option A. Lawyer. Wordsworth's father, John Wordsworth, was a lawyer, which provided him with a comfortable life early on. Wordsworth's poetry frequently features what kind of characters? Option A. Rural and simple individuals. Wordsworth often depicted simple people in his poems, highlighting their connection to nature and wisdom. Wordsworth's emphasis on nature was partly a reaction against what? Answer A. Industrialization. Wordsworth's poetry responded to the negative impacts of industrialization, celebrating nature as a source of spiritual renewal. Wordsworth died in which year? Option B. Option A 1850. 1843 Poet Laureate. और इसी साल द प्रिल्यूड पब्लिश हुआ था मैरी चिंसन आई थिंक. Wordsworth poem VR7 explores the concept of option A. Death and its perception by a child. The poem illustrates how a young child perceives death and the loss of family members, highlighting the child's inability to fully understand the finally of death. We are 7. Which poem of Wordsworth was inspired by the river Wye? Option A. Line composed a few miles above Tinton Abbey. Wordsworth wrote this poem after visiting the river Wye and reflecting on its beauty, which inspired the theme of memory and nature. Wordsworth and Coleridge planned to write an epic titled Option A. The Recluse. The Recluse was an unfinished epic that Wordsworth and Coleridge intended to write together, focusing on philosophical themes. Who criticized Wordsworth for his later, more conservative poetry? Option C. Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Coleridge criticized Wordsworth for his shift towards more conservative, less revolutionary views in his later poetry. Wordsworth's poem The Old Cumberland Beggar reflects on poverty and the value of charity. The poem addresses The theme of poetry, poverty, charity, and the moral responsibility to help the poor. What is Wordsworth's longest poem? Option A. The Prelude. 14 books. The Excursion. 9 books. Tintin Abbey. I think Lyrical Ballads last poem. Michael Pastoral. Also autobiographical. Reflecting his development as a poet. Wordsworth Lucy poems primarily focus on a mysterious young girl, which poetic form is most commonly associated with Wordsworth. Option C. Lyric. The phrase spot of time appears in which of Wordsworth's work? The Prelude. Option A. Wordsworth was awarded in title in which title in 1843? Option A. Poet Laureate. Wordsworth's intimations of immortality is an ode to our childhood memories. The poem reflects Wordsworth's belief in the enduring nature of childhood memories and the idea that the spirit of childhood is immortal. Wordsworth's poem often explore the relationship between nature and human emotion. Which of the following is not part of the Lucy poems? Option D. Strained fits of passion I known. 3 years regrew. I trembled among is the part of Lucy poems. 5 collection. She dwelt among the untrodden ways. Also included. और एक कौन है ये आप कमेंट करेंगे. Wordsworth's father worked for which noble family? Option A. The Luthers. Wordsworth's close friend and collaborator Coleridge wrote which poem in Lyrical Ballads? Option A. The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. I think first poem यही है. Last में lyrical no lyrical ballads तो last में Tintin Abbey and 19 Wordsworth 4 Coleridge. So 23 poem collection, I think. Which of Wordsworth poems is based on a traditional ballad from the Thorn? Option A. Written in ballad form. Wordsworth wrote to the cuckoo in praise of a bird associated with nostalgia. The poem to the cuckoo reflects the nostalgic feeling the bird evokes in the poet. Wordsworth's poetry was heavily influenced by which philosophical idea? Again, same question. No. 68. Pantheism. Pantheism. The god. Pantheism is the belief that nature is God and interconnected, influenced much of Wordsworth's work. Wordsworth's The Excursion is part of a larger unfinished work titled Option A, The Recluse. Wordsworth believed in the healing power of nature is evident in which poem? Tintin Abbey. Option A. The phrase emotion recollected in tranquility is found in which work? Option A. Preface to Lyrical Ballad. The phrase emotion recollected in tranquility is a key idea in the preface to Lyrical Ballad, expressing Wordsworth's view of the poetic process. Wordsworth's poem To a Butterfly reflects his childhood memories. Wordsworth's poem often emphasize which type of imagery? Option A. Visual imagery of nature. Wordsworth's poetry is rich in visual imagery, particularly focusing on the beauty and tranquility of the nature. The Lake poets included Wordsworth, Coleridge, and Option A. Robert Southey. Wordsworth, Coleridge, and Robert Southey is a group of Lake poets. Wordsworth poetry often contrasts with two themes: nature as industrialization, which figure in Wordsworth poetry symbolize the struggle of rural life. Option A. Michael. In Michael, Wordsworth uses the figure of the rural shepherd to symbolize the struggle of rural life and the impact of industrialization. Sonnet series. It is a beauteous evening, calm and free, reflects his admiration of the evening sky and his belief in the presence of divine order in nature. Wordsworth line written above Tinton Abbey was composed during a visit to the Wye Valley. Wordsworth believed poetry should focus on common experience and emotions. Wordsworth's description of the daffodils is an example of personification. Wordsworth's political views in his youth were inspired by which historical event? Option A, the French. Option A, the French Revolution. The French Revolution. Wordsworth was initially inspired by the ideals of the French Revolution, which encouraged liberty, equality, and fraternity. He believed that the revolution would bring about significant social changes. Wordsworth's relationship with Annette Vallon resulted in the birth of which child? Option B, Caroline Wordsworth. Wordsworth had a daughter, Caroline, with Annette Vallon. While living in France, they were not married, and Caroline later moved with her mother to France. Michael, a pastoral poem, is a story about a shepherd and his son. Option A. Wordsworth became estranged from Camp Coleridge due to option C. Coleridge's addiction to opium. Coleridge, while Wordsworth and Coleridge were close friends and collaborators, Coleridge's opium addiction strained their relationship, particularly as Wordsworth became more focused on poetry and nature. Wordsworth described his childhood experience of stealing a boat in which work? Option A, the prelude. Wordsworth's poem Lucy Gray is about a young girl who disappears in a snowstorm. The poem tells the tragic story of Lucy Gray, a girl who wanders out into a snowstorm and disappears, symbolizing innocence and the fragility of life. Wordsworth criticized industrialization in which poem? Option A, the world is too much with us. It's a sonnet. Wordsworth laments the growing distance between human and nature due to industrialization and materialism. Who edited Wordsworth's work after his death? His wife, Mary Hutchinson. Option B. Mary Hutchinson, Wordsworth's wife, was instrumental in editing and preserving his works after his death, ensuring that they were published in the form we recognize today. Wordsworth's poem The Leech Gatherer is also known by what title? Resolution and Independence. This poem tells the story of a man who encounters as leech gatherer, an elderly man who becomes a symbol of endurance and the power of nature. Wordsworth's home is in the Lake District was called option A, Dove Cottage. Daffodils is also known by which title? I wandered lonely as a cloud. Option A. Wordsworth's early support of the French Revolution was replaced by conservatism. After the reign of terror in France, Wordsworth became disillusioned with the resolution outcome and turned to a more conservative stance in his latter years. Which poem mocked Wordsworth as lost leader in a poem? Which poet mocked? Lost leader. Option A. Robert Browning. Wordsworth's sonnet series was written to highlight the beauty of nature. Wordsworth's poem The Excursion is a sequel to option A, The Prelude. Wordsworth's work were influenced by his visits to which reign? Option A, the Lake District. Wordsworth's later poetry shifted focus to religious and moral themes. Wordsworth received a legacy in his latter years from which family member? His brother John. Wordsworth's grave is located in option A, Grasmere Churchyard. Wordsworth's poetry is best known for its depiction of the beauty and transformative power of nature. Wordsworth's poetry is celebrated for its exploration of nature as a source of inspiration, healing, and spiritual insight, often focusing on its power to shape human emotions and understanding. I hope you liked this video. Thanks for watching. Keep exploring, keep learning. English literature awaits your next adventure. Thank you so much. If you like this video, do subscribe, like, share, and comment.